Yeah, it was funny just talking to you a little bit before about Montana. Seems like we're both drawn to Montana. We both grew up in the mountains and in the cold.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of a farm and getting back to that kind of old school natural lifestyle, right?
That's what I want. As a kid growing up, I was very involved with technology, but definitely have the appreciation of wanting to get out there and just do some work. Let's just get out there with the chickens. Let's get out there with the cows. Let's paint the fences. Like, I recently bought a house, and I understand how hard it is to be a homeowner. Like, I was out there fixing, a bathroom fan, and then also painting the basement and sealing it. So I'm about it, like YouTube University. Exactly.
Yeah. I think like working in technology. So I mean, I don't know about you. It seems like we both kind of have that same mindset of like we're in tech all day long, right?
Yeah.
And so like when I get out of work, like I don't want a Tesla or a Cybertruck or my iPhone, or I don't want my house to have all this tech. I want to just kind of get away from it all because we live in that world every day.
Oh, right? It's so funny you say that because my wife, she's super smart home this. Let's get an Alexa that, Google this. And I'm so like, kind of know how it works. I'd like to not do that. I don't need the fridge that's going to tweet for me.
Yeah.
I'm good. Just keep my food cold. I'm good. So I'm good with the analog stuff.
Yeah.
I'm in a weird spot where I was born in '95, and I remember the analog days, and I remember the digital transition to what we have now, and watching us go from a Nokia phone to an iPhone 16 is the paradigm shift for me is surreal. I can't imagine what it's like for like my own dad or even you having to go from sat phones to what we have now.
Yeah, I had a little flip phone in college. Right?
Yeah,
that's what I had. 96, I was a senior in high school, right? So yeah, that dated me a little bit. So Drake Garcia, really excited to have you on Digital Frontlines today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Drake and I, we've gone back. It's got to be about 4 years now. Early days in the U.S. Space Force.
That's right.
Right. So tell us a little bit about that. What your journey? Where are you from? You grew up down in Florida, and then now you live upstate New York here.
Yeah. So like you said, grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. Moved around a lot. Dad was in the Army. Moving was a regular thing for us. Ended up going to upstate where I am at now. So right now I'm remote. The whole COVID thing kind of changed things for the industry and whatnot. But I didn't start in technology. I actually started in transportation at a school, believe it or not. I did go to school for engineering and economics, but I actually ended up starting in transportation. Took my dad's advice.
What'd you do in transportation?
Yeah, I was director of transportation for a trucking company. Started up as a dispatcher, then logistics coordinator, account manager, worked my way up there. Was in charge of a couple of accounts, a couple of customers. So I really saw the trucking industry, understood how everything interacts, but most importantly, like relational management was a huge thing that was always hammered home from day one, whether it's from my mentor at work or my dad. Like at the end of the day, there's people everywhere. Like they are
about the people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Tech can only do so much, right? But it's
100%.
about people. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so made a transition out of it. When the Space Force was getting set up in 2019, there was a big call to arms. A lot of PMs were being asked to come over to program manage, hearing words for the first time like waterfall, Agile, PMP, ACP, Kanban, Scrum. It was just very overloading from someone like me coming from a transportation background. I knew how to get the job done. I knew what it took. I knew how quintessential the job was to everyone. I mean, like, frankly, America stops if trucks stop.
Because didn't you build some tech, or you were coding a little bit in the transportation industry?
Yeah, that was kind of my thing when I was there. I was a young guy out of school. I was very hands-on. I always tell people when I was at work over there, the best class I ever took was an advanced Excel class, believe it or not. It wasn't software foundations. It wasn't engineering foundations. It was Excel.
Yeah.
So I built a couple of Excel macros, and it saved me a lot of time.
Yeah.
Didn't tell anyone about it.
Yeah. You built it first, and then you rolled it out. Right?
Yeah. I kind of kept it to myself a little selfishly. I didn't give it to anyone. Maybe I should have really kind of shared that tribe of knowledge, but it was my way of getting work done quickly, and people thought that was a real game changer. So
you're all about efficiency.
100%.
Really what you're passionate about.
I'm super passionate about saving people time. I feel like our brains are just wired for something higher. Yeah. And some of these menial tasks that we just bash our heads against are just wasteful. Yeah. And needs to be automated.
Yeah, I mean, I saw you early on, right? I think the Space Force and the DoD is really going through this early stage of this transformation journey and getting the young talent, that fresh blood coming into the DoD, and you've really shined. It's been a pleasure getting to know you for the last few years. Tell us a little bit about that. So you came in. I think there's, what is DevOps in the military today? Like what is that? What is DevOps to you, or DevSecOps?
Yeah. I know it as DevSecOps, Development Security Operations. It's just cultural shift of shifting security to the left in the process of development. DevOps is really the whole process from start to end of coding some sort of tool and then seeing it being deployed and managing the operations all in between. You would typically in the past, you'd code something up and you hand it off to the deployment team, and they would worry about the testing at a different team, and quality assurance was all scattered. But DevOps or DevSecOps kind of combines all that, and it also shifts security to the left, making sure that it's baked in from the start. The developers really have that mindset of, we got to make sure this is secure and compliant right at the beginning. And on top of that, it's quick.
Yeah.
And it's so cool being in this industry, watching these people, the frozen middle, I like to call, just have that aha moment of like, this is how it should be done.
It moves fast.
Right.
I don't know. Deploy in 5 minutes instead of 5 months.
I don't know what examples you've seen, but like I've got oodles of demos I've had with people, and they really have that. That's how it should be.
Yeah. Now tell me, I remember I heard a story about I think it was a 1-star or 2-star general that came down to your organization. Tell us a little bit about that.
I
moment.
I love that. I love this demo. It's great. We had this demo for this general who was coming in, and he wanted to see, what this DevSecOps process was, this whole agility in coding, and what's this organization that's like known for their T-shirts and their ping pongs and Nerf guns. Show me what you guys are really working on. So we came up with this demo for this like one program, and to highlight that Agile sense of coding, we purposely made some errors in the program.
So you made the errors first before the general showed up, just to kind of proof this out a little bit.
That's right. Okay. We had me and the lead engineer. We had some blatant errors in the code, whether it be incorrect links, link titles, or even the program name being misspelled or anything like that. We riddled them throughout the demo. And I had the engineer have a separate branch all ready to go to fix it as soon as he called it out. So we were going through the demo, and this general was able to, right on cue, point out that something was like an acronym was incorrect. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, that doesn't stand for space dominance awareness. It's space domain awareness. And I go, oh, you're right, sir. My mistake. And it was believable because I was young, and they're like, oh, this kid. Yeah. And then that was the cue for my engineer to fire up a pipeline, go ahead and merge that code onto a new branch and deploy. And once the website was being degraded and was slowy, and his token had to be refreshed, I'm like, oh, hey, Andy, your token needs to be refreshed. Go ahead and refresh that real quick so we can continue the demo. And then, boom, right there, the change happened.
And why was that? It was a pipeline, right?
Yeah.
Through the pipeline. So can you tell the viewers a little about what is a pipeline?
Yeah, so a pipeline is essentially is exactly what it sounds like. It's this pipeline for code to get deployed, and it's going to have certain checkpoints and gateway assurances. And there's a lot of static code analysis that happens in it. It can also have some sort of scanning tool, whether or not if you want to do analysis on the dependencies that you're having in it, or any sort of insert your cool tool here, you can put in this pipeline. And it's going to be, dependent on who is going to be your person that's like sanctioning your development environment. And as you know, in the industry, like that's getting the authorizing official blessing is very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. But that is essentially what this pipeline did. It was the code went through a series of scans, checks, and was able to say, yep, all good, deploy right away. And it got automated just like that. Yeah,
I like to think about it as like a medieval knight, right? Like Lancelot going through that gauntlet, right? Like that movie First Knight.
Yeah.
And he's going through the gauntlet, and the swords are coming at him. That's the pipeline, right?
Right.
You're going through that code's getting tested and verified and regression and security. And then you get all the way through the other side of that pipeline and the code's really good. That way the developers know, they did a good job. It's passed all the tests. Then it's, release on demand or ready to move to a production environment or a mission critical system like the DoD.
Exactly. And I didn't show, or you suggested to me the other day that maybe we should show people in demos how that pipeline's progressing. I thought it was a little bit too technical, but I see the value in definitely showing the cool little iterations that happen, whether you use Jenkins or GitLab or GitHub, whatever you want to use. But right on cue in this demo, the general saw that his changes
pretty cool
were implemented. And he's like, oh, you guys can make changes just like that. And then he asked a bunch of questions that luckily our CISO was in the room, was able to ask. He asking about accreditation.
What's a CISO?
Chief
Security, right? Security officer.
Yes, essentially the security officer, right? The actual acronym eludes me, but he was answering all the questions about the authority to operate and the accreditation process and whatnot, which was out of my purview at that time. But the general was very impressed.
Yeah, I think it's good to point out, right? So with the authority to operate, ATO we call that. So that's where you have an authorizing official would then say, hey, yes, we approve for this system to, be moved to a mission critical production environment, right? Tell us a little bit about the difference between an ATO, authority to operate, and a continuous ATO, which is what your organization has been really leading the front in the Department of Defense for the last 3-4 years now.
Right. Yeah. So ATO is the authority to operate. It's a very rigid process of documentation and accreditation, and it has all the checks that you need to go through in order to deploy your application or your program. They just want to make sure that what you're doing is compliant and safe and is up to code to what is deemed acceptable. It is going to be a little bit opinionated depending on what authorizing official you do have in your organization. But the idea nowadays is to have a continuous authority to operate, because back in the day, if you don't have the ATO, I mean, it still happens today, frankly, every time you want to make a change to your code or your application, even as simple as a button change or a title change, you have to go through this whole process again, which is 12, 18 months. It's unacceptable.
You can't, the world's moving too fast to wait that long.
100%. Yeah. I mean, in the modern day, your apps on your phone get updated daily. So how are we going to expect our military applications to abide by antique methods of 12, 18 months of...
So what I understood is the continuous ATO by that authorized official, they really grant that in very rare cases because it's like really about the culture, right? It's about, if that organization, that platform, that software factory, does, continuous integration, test-driven development, right, some type of pair programming or mob programming or peer reviews, but building that quality into their software development process, then that AO, really has that, like, I'm going to accept that level of risk with that team because I trust them. They've got the best practices, to really ensure that we're not pushing defects or vulnerabilities out into a mission-critical production system.
Absolutely. That is what is so awesome about the CATO. As long as you continue to do these processes and don't go outside and you keep with that culture, you don't walk outside these boundaries I laid for you. Keep doing your deployments. Keep doing your coding. Like, it is an amazing thing to watch, and it's really cool to watch the end users, the operators, the warfighters benefit from that.
Right.
And I'd like to see more organizations out there seek that ATO, or that CATO rather, and embrace that culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, what have you seen out there, but I've only known the CATO. I have not been in an organization where there is an ATO.
Yeah, so we don't have a lot of CATOs, right? I mean, there's only a handful of organizations that have been granted those, right? I mean, I think Kessel Run kind of led the charge right up in Hanscom, right up in Boston. Yeah. There's a few software factories that are, out there. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of it. And it's a lot of that waterfall type processes to get those ATOs granted. So glad to see that you guys are really leading the charge. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of these software factories and also the difference between a software factory and a platform? Like, is it Platform One is one of the
Platform One is one of the ones out there. Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion between Platform One and some of these other software factories that are out there. I'm glad you asked that question. When you look at the diagram, you've got your cloud at the bottom, foundation kind of hosting everything.
Your infrastructure layer.
Right. Yeah. And then you have your platform layer that have the actual environment hosted inside that provides the tooling that developers need to actually build the applications. And then you have the software factories that layer on top that does the physical coding, the physical delivery of features to the end user. So one, is the foundation. Two is the actual methodology of delivering it, the engine, if you will. And then three, you have the person driving the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool new organizations coming out there.
There's one, Space Camp is one.
Space Camp is one. They're the software factory of the Space Force. And they're responsible for a bunch of applications, whether it's trailblazing or satellite operations. They've come out with some cool apps there.
Yeah. What type of apps and customer, man? We got to only talk about an open forum like this, but tell us a little bit about some of the customers, some of the applications, some of the cool stuff. Because I think with Kessel Run, they started out with building an app for the Air Force, right, to help with like some cost savings on fuel, right? But in Platform One and Space Camp, can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Space Camp has really been a software factory that develops apps for space operators, whether it's in the space domain awareness functionality or launch area, whether it's like launch schedulers or area of operation awareness, to as simple as like just legacy software becoming modernized, just refactoring that stuff. That's what these software factories are really good at, is ushering in the new modern area of code development for some of these programs that don't have modern software. They just have legacy software, whether it's built like ad hoc in like Access or Excel. An organization like Platform One is really like the engine delivery system of the DoD. All these organizations either based off their delivery methods off that organization, or they actually come to it and they build their applications there.
Okay. And so I know Platform One, there's kind of some value streams, right? We talk about value streams a lot. When I was in the telco industry, our CIO and COO talked about the billing as a value stream, right? And transforming the company and breaking down the stovepipes and the silos and building that cross-cutting organization to eliminate several forms of waste, right? Two of the forms are handoffs and delays. Can you tell us a little bit about value streams in your organization? And I know there's that Lego concept you like to talk about with specifically around containers, and tell us a little bit about containers and Kubernetes and how are you guys adopting that containerization technology into the DoD?
Sure. So I do have a Lego analogy for what I at least read off Platform One site. It looks like when you're building an application, you have a bunch of images that are hardened and are approved to be used, and they're graded for use, and they're actually analyzed. So you're actually secure in where the code is coming from. Supply chain software analysis.
So that'd be like an application,
right? That
you harden and make sure that application is secure. Then DoD puts a stamp on it, and then you store that, and then for others to be able to use that image or that container, right? Is that kind of...
So I think just reading off the site, I don't think they use the words actual hardened or approved. They just say they analyze it and they grade it, approved for use. I akin that to like a Lego piece. You have your little blocks that you can stack on top of each other, and you can build something from it, which is cool. You can choose your colors and whatnot, but it looks like one of their products is, you can come from their library and say, okay, I can use these for development.
Yeah, different colors, different sizes.
Exactly.
I want to build an airplane, a ship, a tank.
Right.
You can use different Legos. So
I've got this bucket, and I can choose from this bucket.
And each bucket or each Lego would be a container.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then looking at the website, looks like they've got another value stream there that does the Lego set, if you will. They give you like the instructions to construct a Lego item, and you follow their instructions. They've got the pieces for you. They got the colors all chosen out, and they even have a nice little picture for you. So you can, at your home, build it yourself. But, they're not responsible for anything you may do to it. You, of course, can add your own Legos to it if you have your own Legos. It may not be the same thing that you wanted to build, but hey, it's something, right?
The colors might not match, but
right.
maybe the plane works.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And then you still have to ask permission from your mom if you can play with it. Right. Which in this case, like the AO is like your mom.
Yeah.
So that is one of their value streams. They have another one, reading from their website. It looks like that you can actually come to, I don't know, if we're playing Legos together, I could go to your house. In fact, we have to go to your house.
Yeah, you can't bring your Legos to my house.
Right, I have to go to your house.
And my mom's got to be there, and the instructions got to be there.
Right. And we're playing by, your mom's rules, and we're building what you want to build. Well, I guess we're building what we can build from your Lego sets. Right.
And we use my pipeline.
Exactly.
My tools.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it.
And can't leave that place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so that's what it looks like from their website. Just reading.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. So you got like kind of this stack or bank of a bunch of Legos.
Yes.
That you can use. They work and you can use them, or you can have the other option would be to take a set of Legos like an airplane set and the instructions.
Yeah.
Or you go to a Lego factory or a location where you get to use just their Legos. So, and why is that important, having kind of these three different models or these three different value streams and the benefit of, customers within the Department of Defense on how they might be able to leverage this type of technology?
Yeah, so value streams are pretty important because you need to be able to map out from start to end where an organization or a group of people need to come up with something and then deliver it to the end user who's going to use it with as little waste as possible, the most efficiency possible. You also want to be able to incorporate feedback somewhere in this loop. That way you're building something with purpose, right? We're not building what I want to build. We want to build what the end user wants.
Right.
And that is what the value stream mapping intends to do. I think you've got some great experience with value stream mapping out in the field.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, a lot of good stories over the years. I think as we transform into this new modern era, we have to think about really breaking down those silos and accelerating delivery to the warfighter, right? Absolutely. And with AI now, it's even much faster, right? But when we think about waste, there's extra features, extra work, task switching, defects, relearning, rework. But the big ones are bottlenecks and handoffs and delays. And by organizing around delivering value, which in your case, your end users are the program offices that need a DevSecOps pipeline, whether it be a bunch of containers or the Lego sets analogy. I think that's the world we're moving to, is instead of this kind of program management approach of top down, it's more across the cutting, right, where it's cross-functional and it's value stream driven. So I want to kind of pull on that thread a little bit. You've been now stepping into the world of agile coaching. I think the title that your team members have given you is called the Scrum Lord. What's that all about?
It was actually a title I inherited. The person before me had the title Scrum Lord, and I've just worn it. I definitely champion all forms of agile. Like, there's different types. It's not just Scrum. I'm really passionate about the topic because a lot of my friends are developers, and I hear this story all the time of, I don't like agile. I don't like this, like, story points. Woohoo, who cares? I just want to code. And it breaks my heart every time because that's not really the purpose. I mean, the purpose.
What's a story point? Why do we use story points?
Well, you try to do it to estimate how much time or how much value is on a certain topic. In your backlog, you have your team members kind of assign a value point or story point to whatever task you're completing. That way you can kind of estimate over the time, like, all right, it's going to take roughly this amount of time, or it's got this much impact to the end user.
Like relative sizing.
Exactly.
Before.
It's turned into a monster. It's turned into your typical PM going, well, how many points is that? And how long is that going to take? And here's the EVM that I'm going to deliver. And it's just, that's not what it's all about.
So tell us what it's all about. If we have a 3-star, 4-star at the Pentagon right now watching this, or maybe somebody on the Hill watching our podcast today, talk about the importance of trusting your team, giving your team the vision, the tools to be successful,
right,
and not so much micromanagement. Because I think what happened with story points is that evolved from earned value management, right?
Yes.
In the 70s of all of this, because projects were slipping, right? They needed to have this kind of micromanagement approach to looking at what the teams are delivering. Now we have story points with Agile, but I'd say, what's your recommendation on talking about PI planning or coming to demos, or how does a leader gain insight into the health of a team or an organization, rather than getting those status reports on story points?
I'll tell you a story. I got a good buddy. He's local here. Shout out Brian. He's a developer, senior developer for a company. I won't say the company, but he had a new PM come and said, like, hey, we got a stakeholder meeting. I got to tell him what you guys did last week. Can you tell me what we did? And he straight up said, I did an extra large shirt last week, and that was it.
Got an extra
I might do
shirt.
a medium shirt this week. That's what they measured their stuff in, was shirt size.
T-shirt size.
Right, and that's a common thing. But what does that mean? So all that to say, how would I explain it to like a 2-star, 3-star, whoever's asking is really this culture is about empowering your teams. And at the heart of this all is making sure you improve over time. So you have to have some sort of mechanism actually tracking that. The calculus that goes into making a team better is that you're listening and you're iterating. It's not just the application you're building or the project you're building, but like your team. You want to scale. I'm a big video game guy, so there's an analogy, there's a terminology out there like scaling, right? As you go from the early game, medium game, late game, you want to make sure you scale. And if you are doing it properly, story points and velocity is how your team scales with time. No one else should care about your story points, but frankly, your own team.
Right.
You need
100%. Like I love, I'll put the burn down chart by the door of my team room. Right. Or if we're a remote team, having a Confluence page, but the team uses the burn down to get better. It's all about getting better, right?
Yeah.
Same with a velocity chart. You have a velocity chart. You look at what they did from previous sprints, right, over time.
Right.
They should be, getting better, pausing every sprint, having a retrospective, identifying 3 user stories or tasks that they can do to take forward in the upcoming sprint, or in a program increment every quarter, doing a workshop, a 5 whys, a fishbone diagram, really trying to dissect a problem, break that problem down, and fix it. So
those are all just tools in our tool belt to get at the thing, which is people. Right. People are at the heart of it. Yeah. And that's why I love this job is I get to interact with people and help them be as efficient as possible working together. Yeah.
And being excited about coming to work every day, right?
Yes.
Working on cool systems like the DoD, right?
Right.
Let's talk about that. Let's say we got a kid out there. He's a senior in high school.
Sure.
Maybe he's a senior in college. He's thinking about, maybe going to Silicon Valley. We'll talk about the threat a little bit, but we've got these peer competitors out there, Russia and China, and they are advancing pretty fast, right?
Right.
And so we've got IndoPACOM as one of our customers that we support out there. Talk a little bit about why it's important to come to the DoD and work in an organization like Space Camp or Platform One or Kessel Run or some of these kind of high-speed organizations.
Right. So the way I champion the mantle is that my family's a military family. I never joined, but my dad said, just get involved somehow, and this is my way of contributing back. And it gets me up. It truly gets me up in the morning because he told me something that kind of has resonated with me. He said, son, there is no Mr. Army, besides like the commander-in-chief, obviously, or, the head of the Army. There's no like, I am Mr. Army. The way the Army or any sort of DoD agency shows that they care about their warfighters is the tools they give them. Yeah. So I want to be there, fair weather or not, to give those tools to those warfighters. They're people just like you and me, but I've got immense respect for those heroes, and I want to be at that forefront to deliver that. Hey, we care, and we want to give you the best stuff possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next conflict might not be kicking down doors in Kabul.
Right.
It might be ones and zeros. Right. It might be in the code. Maybe talk about that. I know there was a blog you wrote recently where you talked a little bit about the beginning of the blog about the not having the right technology.
Right.
They're pulling that thread a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I laid out a scenario, very real scenario. We're in an area where there's degraded signals or whatnot. We give so much training and so much resources to the best warfighters we have. Everyone is expecting success, but when we're not successful in the digital realm, what does that look like? We equip them with like a drone, and we equip them with technology that's expected to work in the field. Well, the second that we don't do our jobs, you and I, maybe there was a bug fix that should have happened about 3 weeks ago that didn't make it into our sprint log because we had improper prioritization. Well, they went out into the field with that code, and all of a sudden, when they're supposed to have something that works, they had a latency delay that was caused by that bug that you over missed, and mission's a failure.
Yeah.
And that's something that's easily fixed, and it happens all the time. Like, people do not talk about the failures that technology can have because we just expect it to work.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me up every morning is to make sure that we're delivering the best capabilities to the best people we have, because they deserve it, frankly.
And so DevSecOps and Agile can kind of help ensure that those systems stay up and running, right?
100%.
By practicing some of these, best practices like continuous improvement, continuous integration. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that. What is continuous integration?
Yeah, continuous integration. As soon as you build something, you integrate it to the master, right? And then continuous delivery is when you actually just push it out for
release on demand, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
the customer needs it, they can just pull that code.
No need to stovepipe things. Why do I have to make a bunch of cookies and then sell them by a dozen when I can just, as soon as I bake a cookie, just give it to you?
Yeah,
that's the same thing.
What was it like back in the old days?
Back in the old days, it was the batching, right? Like this whole, I'm going to give you a whole write-up. I'm going to do the whole budget. I'm going to do everything up front in one step. And then we're going to do the next step. And then we're going to do the next step. And by the time you've got this program that someone laid out to you, it's 2 years have passed, millions of dollars been spent, and it's ineffective.
And the threats changed. The users
changed.
don't need that anymore.
Correct.
Right? So we have to move fast, right?
So they'll have this QA session at the end of this whole process, and the warfighter will just look at the person built it. It's like, I don't need this anymore. It doesn't work. It's not what I want. So CI/CD allows us to just do things in time and deliver it straight to who needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk a little bit about AI then. So we're moving fast. It's 2025. Right? I remember I facilitated an AI conference in 2017. And I had Rob High, the CTO of IBM Watson, right, give a talk on AI. And there was two AIs talking to each other back then in 2017.
Wow.
That was 8 years ago. And we talked about AI being the future. ChatGPT came out 2 years ago. But this explosion it's insane. I mean, we got Kosuke Kawaguchi that came out with Jenkins, now just created Launchable, which is the testing, using AI to identify tests. Solomon Hykes that had Docker, created Docker containers, right? Now has got his new tool that's doing AI for containerization.
Yeah.
Where do you see us going in the next 6 months, 12 months with AI being so mainstream right now across the spectrum?
I just think AI makes sense in our realm. It just makes sense in general, really. I've got a big opinion about it. I feel like it can be a huge production increase because we can just implement AI right into the processes that the engineers or human has to do. That's trivial. Doesn't really engage a lot of their skill set, but it's just something you got to do. So I think that's why we plug AI. Just we give them the tasks that is necessary, but we don't really want to do, and that will give us more time to really focus on what matters with the solution architecting and the things that we are actually built to do.
Yeah, I see it as like human error, right?
Yeah.
We make, as humans, we're error prone, right? We're always tripping and falling and breaking things, right? And so those manual tasks, right? Whether it be writing a user story in Jira, right? Or, pushing our code into a Jenkins pipeline, or notifying the developer that his unit test failed, right? Or creating a new unit test, right? Or getting feedback out to those warfighters. We can start thinking about how we can use AI. The only thing that I get concerned about from a DoD perspective is really about, being secure, right?
Yeah.
And so, there's some folks out there that really want our way of life, right? The white picket fence and everything we have.
Right.
So we have to protect this, but we also have to think about, how do we protect our critical mission systems from other countries attacking our system using AI? And so I think there's a delicate balance there.
100%.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what it does. You know, you mentioned ChatGPT. I think the barrier to entry to AI has definitely decreased. Like the floor to entry is awesome. Anyone can pick up any sort of GPT transformer AI model and just go to town with it, and that's awesome. I think I read over the weekend that ChatGPT got an explosive 1 million new users in a day because this whole Jalebi art stuff that's happened, and I think it's great that people are trying to embrace it. Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what people do. I think one time you gave me this great analogy that there was the industrial age boom when we discovered how motors work, and we discovered the power of fossil fuels transforms our economy quite literally. And you told me that you think that we're experiencing something the same.
Golden age.
Right, with this AI. And it's just not quite harnessed. We know we have something. We just don't know what to do with it, and it's going to be cool to see what all these brilliant minds can really come up with.
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, our new president, President Trump, is really, taking AI seriously. I think it was $500 billion investment in AI, and it's refreshing to see that because we have to stay at the head of the spear, right? We have to be the tip of the spear, and if we let a peer competitor beat us in AI. We might not be able to catch up because AI is exponential, right?
Right.
Where do you see, LLM, large language models, this new thing, multi-agent, AI agents right now, where you can have, essentially an agent replicate a human and they can all start working together.
Right.
Do you see where we can start to use some of this technology in DevSecOps or agility, or how do we kind of help our customers move a lot faster to stay ahead of the game?
The agentic AI concept is very fascinating. As opposed to giving it a separate task, it just understands the mission that you're trying to complete, and I think that's a very fascinating concept. So now you can actually start giving agentic AI models a specific mission set. Like today, you're going to be this DevOps engineer. You're going to be handling pipeline errors, blacklisting, whitelisting. You're going to be handling dependencies, and they just understand that inherently, and that's really powerful. Now we can have our engineers focus on the actual architect of the app, and they can start synthesizing user data more effectively, and I think that's really powerful because now we can just start divvying out the tasks that we don't want to do and start focusing, like I said earlier, on the tasks that are really impactful. Right. And so as we get into these utilizations of LLMs, and you mentioned agentic models, we could use LLMs for documentation retrieval or writing. Like it's a big thing. Mm-hmm. You've always said that Agile, you document as needed, not all
just
up front.
Just in time and documentation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now we can actually just challenge AI to say hey, write my documents as we go, and that just saved me a bunch of time. Yeah. And if I need to reference that document, I can. With LLMs, very easy, very good at retrieval, and it's great.
I think we're going to see in the next 6 months, we're going to see multi-AI agents really get mainstream. I think it's more about the security level, if we can get up to the IL4 or IL5, but building out a UI on top of OpenAI with the multi-agents to sit in the program offices on some of these systems to help us develop technology much faster.
Yeah, I know the DoD is getting into it with Nipper GPT and Ask Sage, so it's interesting to see how we get into this new realm of what is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I know at the Pentagon we have the some of the leadership there. I know there's some stories maybe you can tell. Are you seeing some of the leaders at the Pentagon start to get into DevOps? I know there's some missions, some applications you guys are been working on. Can you tell us a little bit about that? At the leadership level?
Oh, man. There's just so many cool applications that I've seen out there. I know there was this one application I was shown that actually helps Pentagon planners and staffers actually do some force projection and some planning. That's super powerful because, as you know, the budget's a very big thing in the government, and that takes up an exuberant amount of time doing all these calculations. And akin to the invention of a calculator, AI can now just project everything onto you, and now it's as easy as these big brains just making a simple decision of I will purchase this, I will degradate the system, as opposed to doing the math,
or putting more dollars against maintenance, or that
right?
Kind of thing, yeah.
So it's cool that they're coming out with tools with that. There's other tools out there that'll do. I've seen some SIBR proposals out there that are asking for modeling and simulations. There was this really interesting one that I really want to dive deep into. I'm interested to see how this plays. They were doing some war game modeling simulations with AI, and I think that's super fascinating. The whole concept of war game is cool to me because not only do they have these military planners involved, but they also have like gamers who I'm not talking about like myself who likes video games. I'm talking about people who literally game systems
professionally. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're like, what are the rules of this game? And I will try to break it. Yeah. And I think that's so fascinating. And now they want to include AI into this. Yeah. And that's just going to make us more lethal.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite authors, you know, we're big book guys, right? We read books every month. It was John Boyd's autobiography. John Boyd created the OODA loop, right? Which is observe, orient, decide, and act as a fighter jet pilot. And he would dogfight, and he would get inside the OODA loop of his enemies, right? He considered to be one of the greatest fighter pilots of all time. When I talk to space operators, they talk about OODA loop as well in space, right? Of getting inside, and I think that wargaming, right, is those guys doing that wargaming, those that gamification engines that we build at over at Space Camp and some of those other programs over there is getting inside the OODA loop, and I think AI is going to help us get there, right? It's going to help us keep that competitive edge so that we can dogfight in space, which is, I think General Gutlein just on the Hill a couple weeks ago mentioned that, or there's an article that he published about that we're actually dogfighting in space now. So things are getting pretty advanced, and it's pretty exciting. You mentioned something before about impact. I really like that. Can you maybe pull on that thread a little bit about delivering outcomes to our warfighters versus delivering impactful capabilities or systems to our warfighters?
Sure. So I feel honestly bad for the community just because they've gotten a lot of just chatter and just no results. And I think people should be looking at impact statements, and they should be looking at things like objectives and key results, OKRs. You turned me on to this book, Measure What Matters.
Yeah, by John Doerr.
Yeah.
All right, John Doerr, you got to come on the podcast, sir. We'd love to have you.
Big fan.
Big fan.
Amazing
Big fan.
story. If you haven't checked it out, just the journey of this being implemented is awesome. And as someone like myself, I mean, the first task I had as an Agile coach was like, hey, help me implement this in my org. And read that book in 3 days. Yeah. Read it again.
Tell us about Measure What Matters. Who's John Doerr?
Yeah.
He's a legend.
John Doerr has been all over the industry. He started at Intel, which is where this all
under Andy Grove.
Right, this thing all kicked off.
Yep. Back in early 80s?
Right, way before my time. And he moved his way around. Ended up, helping Google do theirs. Google has an amazing story.
Yeah, when Sergey and Larry were still in their garage.
Right. Post-it notes on the fridge. Yeah. Writing on top of each other. That's awesome. Yeah. I actually use the YouTube example in the book a lot. I kind of think of it as a great end goal for an organization with OKRs. You post your objectives and your key results everywhere in your org, and all of a sudden you have people who want to buy in. Yeah. So the story is that when they were trying to get more users at YouTube, concurrent users, they just had that objective everywhere posted around, and everyone would want to jump in from outside of the YouTube team. You had
that was
people,
the big goal. Like Google had an objective,
right,
which was to be the premier YouTube platform at the time, right, to get more users.
Yeah, and they measured it by concurrent users, and you suddenly had people who weren't part of the YouTube team coming in and asking, "Hey, can I help?" Because they were so close to the goal. Yeah. They had it posted everywhere. They're like, "Oh, we're 80% there. We just need another 20%." It's so powerful to have people just own it.
Yeah, what I liked about it, Measure What Matters, was at Google they talked about how they would do these hackathons, and they would get to that 80% level, but then they would give all the developers that freedom to just come up with their own hackathon, their own idea, and they would find out that these guys would create more value, more impact in that one day or that couple of day hackathon than they do like all month.
Wow.
Right? Because you're empowering your people to be creative, and
right.
that's what we are, cerebral cortex, right? We're a creative species, right? And so you unleash that power as a leader, you give them the vision, you give them your OKR, right? Like get more subscribers on YouTube, right? Give them the tools to be successful, right? Set that vision, the tools, and then remove their blockers. You can see that's where you see the velocity, and these companies really take off.
Absolutely, and you could just see I mean, when you talk about impact statements, you just see the so what. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten the so what question asked to me, and OKRs does a phenomenal job of tackling and blocking that before I even get to that point. For those who don't understand OKRs, I love using the football analogy. It's in the book.
Yeah,
it's in the book.
I love football analogy.
You know, owner of a NFL team walks in, says, I want to make money, and he leaves the room. And that's and then the head coach and the GM look at each other like, what do we do? And then they start tasking out. They said, okay, well, if the objective is to make money, well, I'm going to win the Super Bowl. Yeah. That's what the head coach is.
That's the head coach, yeah.
Right, that's his as measured by. Right, his key result is win a Super Bowl.
And what's the GM? What does he have to do?
He's going to figure out how to make money, and he's going to say, we're going to make money as by insert revenue number here. Right. And the key thing is you have tangible metrics you can measure. You can measure if you won the Super Bowl.
Now they're cascading goals, right? Because the owners like make money, then you got to win the Super Bowl, and then you got the GM's like, hey, maybe they redo the roster so Tom Brady plays in Denver, so more people show up to that game.
Right,
yeah.
More jersey sales, and then it just cascades from there. You get the head coach breaks down to the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. He takes the objective. Okay, win a Super Bowl. What does it take to win a Super Bowl? Well, we're going to have a QB passer rating of 93.7. We're going to have yards per game above 300. Et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden, you're going to have your team members taking the key results of the previous and making that their objective. Yeah. And it keeps breaking down all the way down to the very bottom of the tactical people. And so when they get asked the question of like, hey, what am I doing every day? How am I moving the needle? You can point exactly how they're moving that needle. Like today, by you implementing that feature or you fixing that bug, here's how you move the needle.
Yeah, and you can see the bigger vision,
right?
That goal, yeah.
And then everyone can use that as a rallying point.
Yeah, I loved it during COVID. It was great. So we, on the program I had at the time, was in the Space Force, and we started working from home during COVID, obviously, for some of us. But we were able to implement the OKRs ahead of time. And so one of them was engaging with the warfighter. So a lot of times what I see when we get to these programs is they're not talking to the warfighter as much, like in Agile, right? And so I think that's the benefit of agility and DevSecOps is kind of forcing that, right? To say, hey, warfighter, give us your feedback, right? Like, let's demonstrate some software. Let's demonstrate a system. Let us know what you think. So we ended up creating a warfighter engagement scorecard, right? And so it was different categories, so like productivity, quality, user design, right? Yeah. We come in and we thought the roadmap was going to be here, and we thought we were going to see this, but we ended up seeing something different that we don't like or we don't need, but it ended up pretty invaluable, so we liked that, right? So getting that feedback information, and so one of the things we did in the Space Force is we implemented at this SML level, so Senior Material Leader, which is a full bird colonel. Sure. We said, okay, full bird colonel, your objective is to engage with your counterpart, right, at the warfighter, center, the space center. We'll just leave it at that. But then those operators would get engaged, and now we got that cascading flow. So now his material leaders and all these different programs were developing those scorecards as well. And then they were doing sprints every 2 weeks and demonstrating software. So it was a great way to kind of force that collaboration. Yeah. And during COVID, when there was a lot of remote work going on.
That's one of the things I miss about being a young product manager in the space was physically talking to those operators. Yeah. And just, dude, tell me what is bad.
Yeah. What do you need?
Right.
What do you need right now? Yeah.
So if I just had a magic wand to make your job better, what would you want it to look like? And they'd tell me. And the looks on their faces when I delivered something, and they could point to like, hey, I said that, and it's there. It's in this tool that I'm now having to use every day. Yeah. They're just bought in. They're just, they feel like they got skin in the game. That's the point of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And things change, right?
Right.
Things are, you test things out. You have a hypothesis. You get in front of the warfighter, and they change. I love the analogy of Brett Favre, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, right? Hall of Fame quarterback. He talks about at the beginning of the season, the coaches would have the entire season planned out. Here's your schedule. Here's the defenses you're going to come away with. On Mondays, we're going to watch film. On Tuesdays, this is when you're going to take lunch, right? Then we're going to work on, get in the weight room and work on this. The whole year's played out. But what happened was I think it was the 97 season when they won the Super Bowl, he was telling me about how the plans changed, right? What was it? Bill Belichick, right? They were playing against Bill Belichick, and he never called a blitz, right? And so he planned for the whole year.
Yeah.
Against the I think it was I can't remember which team Belichick was coaching at the time. He was the Patriots, but never called a blitz. And guess what? First play of the game, he's like, "Oh my God, they're calling a blitz." And Mike Holmgren's the head coach, and he was scared of Mike Holmgren because Brett Favre was like young kid back then in his early 20s. Excuse me. And so he saw the blitz coming, and he goes, "I don't want to change the play because Holmgren's gonna chew his shit,
Right.
But he's like, but I also want to win the Super Bowl." And so he called an audible, and Andre Rison just picked him up right before the playoffs, and he threw a post route to Andre Rison and get that touchdown.
Right.
And he pulls his helmet off. Remember, he's running around the field.
Yeah.
That famous picture of him with the helmet off, but he wasn't expecting a blitz. So I think that it's a great analogy, right, to what we do in the DoD and agility, where you can have a plan, but your plan is only as good as you get punched in the face, right? For Mike Tyson. Right?
That's right.
And so, we got to be able to, call those audibles and get that feedback from our warfighters, engage early, find that out and go from there. So, yeah. Hey, so real quick, Drake, wrap up here. I know you're a big book guy. We've been I think we met at 3 years ago or so. We're always talking about all these books, Measure What Matters.
Yeah.
What are some other big books that you've read over the last couple of years that you like?
From Project to Product was an amazing book.
Mick Kirsten.
Yeah, that book really changed my perspective. And anyone who's trying to get into the industry, I recommend that book greatly. I think he does a fantastic job of sharing his anecdotes of traveling to BMW's plant and talking about how modular the actual factory is. Because when you think of this stuff, you think of code, software. But making that delineation between actual hardware and software, you realize that, wow, this isn't just about code and computers. You can use this for it's a process.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. It is something that you could take anywhere. And another company that does a great job of that is actually SpaceX, right? They're making changes to the Starship, other rocket all the time. Yeah. They're failing fast, learning what works, and changing it. So it's not just software.
Yeah,
that's what we know it for. But that book was a paradigm shift for me. Yeah. Just the way it's laid out, the anecdotes it has in it, and it includes a plan at the end of the book. I'm like, hey, if you want to do this, here's how you do it. Yeah. And that really got me inspired. You put me on that one. Team Topologies was also fantastic.
Love that book, yeah.
I reference that one all the time, especially my new people at my organization that I'm currently coaching. Just go out, go talk to the team that you need to go talk to, right? Silos are there if you want them to be there, but don't do it.
Yeah, what I love about Team Topologies is like you look at the architecture of an organization, and then you look at their organizational structure, right? So you come in and it's a cubicle farm. Their architecture looks the same way. Right. But if it's cross-functional, value stream based, their architecture is value stream based as well. So that's Team Topologies is
it's fantastic. I think when you're trying to implement something like that at an organization, I think the best thing to do is when you have a new person, just introduce them everywhere. And don't tell anyone who you're introducing, like the title. Don't say this is my
company they work for.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Especially if you're working in a coalition like I do and like you do. Don't even say if they're military, government, civilian, whatever. Just that's their name. Here's what they're really good at. Because what you'll see is that when that new person needs something, they'll just naturally go to that person because they know it. And they won't even recognize that, like, oh, that's the senior program manager that I'm talking to, right? Because if you start introducing that stuff, you start creating that hierarchy instead of like a flat organization, you'll get people who are timid and don't want to cross the line because that's what they're used to.
Right. Yeah, they're not used to talking to the bosses, right?
Right.
Yeah. I have a good thing that I like to do is I'll create a user story for that new employee, that new person.
Yeah.
And so it'll be like, as Bob, I want to get up to speed as quick as possible on my team so that I can understand my position, my role, and what value I can provide. And then the acceptance criteria is go meet with Drake.
Yeah.
Get a Agile 101 from Drake. Go meet with Samantha. Learn about the mission software that we're building, right?
That's great.
Go meet with the architect. Go meet with the user design. Go meet with the warfighter. Go out to the ops center.
Yeah.
And so after that 2-week sprint or that first couple of sprints, you're onboarded, you got all of your tools, you understand the mission, and you're ready to be successful.
We have to seal that. That's great.
Just don't do story points on that. We don't want to story point that. So,
What kind of T-shirt size would you say that is?
Exactly. Well, Drake, it's been a pleasure. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining us on Digital Frontlines.
Yeah.
If you guys get a chance, follow Drake on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Right, he's doing some amazing things, and I think if you're out there and you're young, you're 29.
Yes, sir.
29 years old, and he's pretty much leading one of the premier DoD DevSecOps organizations with hundreds, or I don't know, lots of customers.
That's right.
In all branches, right? You got the Pentagon,
branches,
you got
right.
agencies across all the different branches of service. And so if you're a young guy, in school, high school, college, and you want to come into the service, I think Drake would be a great role model to follow on LinkedIn, and you can really learn a lot from him. So, hey, we're Digital Frontlines. Stay tuned. We'll be dropping a podcast every Tuesday. Please subscribe. We've got Marina Nintz coming up next week. Marina is the founder of, she wrote a book called Hack Your Bureaucracy.
Fantastic.
And Marina was the CTO at Veterans Affairs, so helping the VA create technology for our critical veterans of our country. And she really learned about how to navigate the complexity of the government, of the DoD. And her counterpart that wrote the book Hack Your Bureaucracy, he was at the White House that helped start the digital service. So a lot of great information there, and looking forward to talking to Marina.
You got to tune in that one. I love that book.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, Drake, appreciate it. Thanks for your
Thank you,
time.
sir, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.